Disclaimer: this story is a work of fiction. Names, characters, and incidents are the product of the writer's imagination. Any resemblance to actual persons or events is purely coincidental. Sit back, relax, and enjoy the story. Only on Golden Storytime. Part 1. The First Meeting. Ayaan was a quiet college student, a painter who loved capturing sunsets. Meher was full of life, a writer who believed that every face had a story. One rainy afternoon, Meher forgot her umbrella. Ayaan, standing nearby, quietly handed her his. She smiled. "You'll get wet." He replied, "It's okay, I like the rain." That one small act began a friendship that soon turned into something deeper, something unspoken. Part 2. The bond grows. Days turned into weeks. Ayaan painted Meher's smile, and Meher wrote stories inspired by his silence. They never said "I love you," but the world around them knew. Until one day, Ayaan got a scholarship to study abroad. Meher smiled and said, "Go chase your dreams. I'll be right here." But her eyes said something else. Part 3. The letter before leaving, Ayaan wrote Meher a long letter, a confession of his love. He left it at her doorstep the night before his flight. But fate had other plans. The wind blew the letter away into the street, and it never reached Meher. Intermission. Sometimes destiny hides our words so that time can test our hearts, but true love always finds a way back. Stay tuned. The story continues after this short intermission. Part 4. Years later. 5 years passed. Ayaan returned home, successful but empty. He searched for Meher, only to learn she had moved to another city. He went to their old meeting spot, the art gallery. There, he saw one of his old paintings on display, with a small note attached, "For the boy who taught me how to love in silence. Meher." Part 5. The truth. A week later, a postman visited Ayaan with an old, weathered envelope. It was his letter found years later during a renovation near Meher's old house. He opened it with trembling hands, and tears filled his eyes. His own words stared back at him. "If you ever read this, know that you were the only story I ever wanted to paint." Part 6. The reunion. Ayaan found Meher at a book launch. Her novel, titled The Letter That Never Reached. Their eyes met. No words, no explanations, just tears, and a smile that said, "Finally, you were listening to Golden Storytime, where every story touches the heart." Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe for more emotional love stories. Please be advised that the following story is a work of fiction. The characters, events, and names are products of the author's imagination. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, or actual events is purely coincidental. Ayaan was a quiet college student, a painter who loved capturing sunsets. His canvases were filled with fiery oranges, soft purples, and the last golden rays of the day. He found his voice in colors, not words. Meher, on the other hand, was full of life, a writer who believed that every face held a story, every smile a secret, and every tear a novel. Her world was built from sentences and paragraphs, a library of human emotions. One rainy afternoon, a day when the sky wept without end, Meher forgot her umbrella. She was stranded under the small awning of the university library, watching the world blur through the downpour. Ayaan, who had just finished a session of sketching the rain-streaked windows, was leaving. He saw her, a splash of bright yellow in a world gray, shivering slightly. Without a word, he walked over and held his large, black umbrella over her. Meher looked up, surprised, her big, curious eyes meeting his calm, gentle ones. "You'll get soaked," she said, her voice like a melody against the rhythm of the rain. Ayaan just gave a small, shy smile and gestured for them to walk. "Where are you headed?" she asked. He simply pointed towards the arts building across the campus. So they walked together, huddled under the shelter of one umbrella. The silence wasn't awkward. It was filled with the sound of rain and the unspoken connection forming between them. When they reached her dormitory, she turned to him. "I'm Meher," she said, extending a hand. "Ayaan," he replied, his voice soft, almost a whisper. It was the first word he'd spoken to her. That rainy day was the start of their story. Ayaan would paint, and Meher would sit beside him, writing. He painted her laughter, her thoughtful expressions, the way her hair caught the sunlight. She wrote about his silent strength, the passion in his eyes when he looked at a canvas, and the way he saw beauty in a world she often rushed through. He was her quiet harbor, and she was his vibrant storm. They were different, yet they fit together perfectly, like two halves of a forgotten song. They fell in love, not with a grand declaration, but in a series of small, quiet moments: a shared cup of coffee, a walk through a park, a comfortable silence. But life, like a story, needs conflict. After graduation, Meher received an incredible opportunity, a scholarship to study literature in a city halfway across the world. It was her dream, the one she had written about in countless journals. Ayaan, whose roots and family were firmly planted in their hometown, couldn't leave. They stood at the airport, the bustling noise fading into a bubble of their own sorrow. "I'll come back," Meher promised, tears streaming down her face. "I'll wait," Ayaan vowed, his voice thick with emotion, holding her hands as if he could prevent the world from pulling them apart. They promised to write, to call, to keep their love alive across the miles. And for a while, they did. Letters filled with stories and sketches crossed the oceans. But time zones, new friends, and the sheer weight of distance began to create a chasm between them. The calls became less frequent, the letters shorter. The vibrant colors of their love story started to fade into muted tones. The day Meher told him she wasn't sure when she was coming back, a part of Ayaan's world lost its color. The heartbreak was a silent, aching void. He stopped painting sunsets. How could he capture their beauty when his own sun had set? He packed away all the portraits of Meher, unable to face the joy they once brought him. His canvases became blank, mirroring the emptiness he felt inside. Years passed. 5, to be exact. Ayaan became a respected art teacher. He taught his students to see the world, to find the light and shadow in everything. But he rarely painted for himself anymore. He was good at his job, pazienty, and kind, but those who knew him before saw a light that had gone out in his eyes. He had accepted his fate, believing their love was just a beautiful, finished chapter in his life. Meanwhile, Meher became a successful author. Her books were celebrated for their emotional depth and a unique sense of longing. Her characters often searched for something they had lost, a home they couldn't return to, a love that was just out of reach. She had fame and everything she thought she wanted, but she was haunted by a feeling of incompleteness, a recurring dream of a quiet boy and a shared umbrella in the rain. One day, Meher found herself back in her hometown for a book festival. It was a trip she had been dreading and anticipating in equal measure. The city was a ghost of memories. Every street corner, every cafe, held a whisper of Ayaan. On her last day, driven by an impulse she couldn't explain, she visited their old university campus. She found herself standing in front of the arts building, the same place he had walked her to all those years ago. A flyer on the door announced a local art exhibition featuring the work of the faculty. Her heart skipped a beat when she saw his name, Ayaan. Her hands trembled as she walked inside. The gallery was filled with landscapes, portraits, and abstract pieces, but she wasn't looking at them. She was looking for him. And then she saw it. In a quiet corner of the gallery, there was a new collection, separate from the others. The first painting was of a rainy day, a girl in a yellow coat, and a boy holding a black umbrella. The next was of that same girl, laughing, her hair catching the light. Another showed her reading a book, lost in her own world. They were all her. But the final painting, the largest one, took her breath away. It was a sunset, but not just any sunset. It was the most vibrant, hopeful, and breathtaking sunset she had ever seen. The colors were more intense, more alive than any of his old work. It was a painting not of loss, but of enduring hope. She felt a presence beside her. She turned, and there he was. Ayaan. He looked older, his face etched with the quiet sadness of the years, but his eyes were the same. They held the same gentle, calm spirit she had fallen in love with. "You came back," he said, his voice a low rumble, just as she remembered. Tears welled up in her eyes. "I read your paintings," she whispered, her voice choked with emotion. "They're a story, our story." He gave a small, sad smile. "I tried to stop," he confessed. "I tried to paint other things, but my heart, it only knows how to paint you." In that moment, the 5 years of silence, the miles of ocean, and all the unspoken words melted away. She saw it in his eyes, in the sunset he had painted. His love had never faded. It had just been waiting. "I'm not leaving again," Meher said, her voice firm, a promise. "My stories were always missing their ending. It's you. It's always been you." Ayaan didn't need words. He simply reached out, his hand finding hers. And for the first time in 5 years, the world felt full of color again. True love, they learned, doesn't get lost. Sometimes it just takes a longer, more winding path to find its way back home. Thank you so much for watching and sharing this story with me. If you were moved by Ayaan and Meher's journey, please let me know in the comments. I love reading your thoughts. And if you enjoy stories that touch the heart, don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more. It truly means the world. See you in the next story.